Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. It's a little later than usual, but we have arrived at our first look podcast of the new anime season, winter 2024. It's a season, all right. Somehow between all the all the isekai and specifically isekai villainous shows, we have found a bunch of shows to talk about on this episode. I don't know how many we'll continue watching, but there were quite a few that caught our attention at least.
I get the feeling you could just take that introduction and slap it onto the new season first look podcast for every season now. Like, including the we're later than expected part.
No, this is like really late because we took a break to do our top 10 last time. But
I guess that's true, yeah.
Like last year it was up and down with some seasons had a lot of hot isekai garbage and others had less, but this is one of them that has a lot.
It's sure. Pretty tough. Yeah, I mean, having actually come through the entire season to like select the shows that would be worth covering for our blog, it is truly wretched.
Yeah, I don't ever want to watch whatever that seventh time Luke the villainess enjoys a carefree life married to her worst enemy again. But anyway,
I instantly understand the entire plot of that show from the title.
Yeah, funny.
I don't have to watch it.
Funny how that works, but we have a lot of other shows to talk about. And before we get into that, let's introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
I'm still here. No, I'm not dead yet.
Still with us here and alive in 2024. And we are joined by G.
Don't worry, everybody. I'm here to make sure that we talk about the premiere mecha anime of this season.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann movie, Part 1, Childhood's End.
Yeah, it's premiered and is technically premiered in the United States.
When did the movie originally come out, though? Like, was it?
I feel like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Was it shortly after the TV series? I don't remember.
I think it was a couple years.
But certainly not within the last 10 years, right?
No.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, Jill. So Ira and I saw the, yes, as we were alluding to, the Gurren Lagann films are getting special one-night showings in America at the moment. And for the first movie, which aired last week, they had a little special introductory reel with Meshi and the Trigger crew.
And Koyama and Wakabayashi, yeah.
Yes. And that little reel sure is the music about, wow, it's been a long time since Gurren Lagann, huh? Over 15 years. And I'm like, please don't say that.
Yeah, that's a lot to swallow. But
Meshi literally says, man, I have to assume that some of our fans from the original show probably have kids now. And I'm like...
Really rubbing it in, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's taken 15 years for us to get another mecha show this season.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. We'll talk about that for sure, but yes. I take it, from what you guys were saying, those movies still good, though.
Gurren Lagann, good, who knew?
Still one of the all-time greats.
What the hell?
Turns out.
The hottest and most controversial takes on the GLORIOblog.com.
Yeah.
Yes. I was, however, like, jokes aside, genuinely, like, stunned by actually how good Gurren Lagann is.
Yeah.
All over again.
I should rewatch that again. It's been a long time.
Gurren Lagann definitely, and I know we have many other anime to talk about, so I'll keep this short, but Gurren Lagann definitely suffers a bit from the like Cowboy Bebop problem of the praise for it is so overwhelming that I think it's easy to go, oh, it's not that good, right? Like, I mean, like, it was good, but, I mean, man, everybody won't shut up about it. And then you rewatch it again, you go, oh, yeah, no, this is legitimately one of the greatest anime ever.
Yeah, I do feel like I've flipped on that with Cowboy Bebop, where I haven't watched it in so long that I'm starting to think it wasn't as good as I remember, so maybe I need to remind myself on that one, too. But Gurren Lagann is close enough where, I mean, that's going back, for me, Cowboy Bebop's going back like 20 plus years since I've watched it, so Gurren Lagann's still fresh enough in my mind that I remember it being very good.
Still hits.
But, still good. Yeah, and we're also joined by Aqua. This episode.
I also watched a movie about a desperate incel loser who is the worst but becomes the best, all to make a girl notice him. Ridley Scott's Napoleon.
We can't litigate that movie right now. I have.
Stay tuned for our new podcast.
Obi-Wan continues to haunt us. God damn it!
Stay tuned for our new GLORIO podcast where we cover.
The British can't help themselves, can they? Still seething about Trafalgar 100 years later.
All right, we need to move on.
Oh boy!
Before we turn into a history podcast,
Legend of the GLORIO Heroes is back.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, winter 2024 season. It's another GLORIO year, and we got a lot of shows to talk about, and we can just start things off with a bang and talk about Dungeon Meshi.
Woo!
We made it. It's out. It's here.
Dungeons and Delicacies.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious in Dungeon. I'll say it one time for the algorithm. Yeah, so this show is a GLORIO favorite, based on a GLORIO favorite manga that you guys talk about all the time. I, of course, have not read it because I don't read manga, but it is about a party venturing into a fantasy dungeon. It's a classic fantasy party, and they have no money and they're pressed for time, so they are forced to figure out how to eat the monsters that they slay on the way down the dungeon, and that's kind of the hook. It's kind of generally more of a lighthearted tone with that premise. I feel like that could be a very dark premise if I don't specify. So it is a little more lighthearted, a lot of actual cooking going on and things. And,
the funny thing about Dungeon Meshi is that it's like, to me, when I try to summarize that show, I always feel like I need to be making excuses for the fact that it's about like a generic fantasy party going down a dungeon. So it's always like, it's kind of like about like your standard Dungeons and Dragons tropes. But the interesting thing is that they eat animals, whereas like it makes you realize that if you would say this to any normal person, like
it does not sound very interesting.
It would be the other way around, right? They would be like, oh yeah, well, like Dungeons and Dragons, fantasy adventure in the dungeon, tell me more. And there's like, yeah, and they cook the monsters, and then everyone just immediately runs away.
I think the important thing to remember, right, is that Dungeon Meshi, the manga, was first published 2014, I believe. So
before times.
Yes, anime has changed a lot in the time since, right? The trends have changed a lot in the time since. But so I think many of the ways in which Dungeon Meshi was being inherently gamist in its design and its inspiration has sort of become much more commonplace in modern anime, for better or worse. Right?
So the thing about Dungeon Meshi is that, unlike so many other shows with similar theming, there's no fucking stat windows or what have you.
Right. I think that's the important thing to emphasize, right, is that Dungeon Meshi is, to be very clear, is inspired by games, is, very clearly inspired by Ryoko Kui's love for D&D and wizardry and other, like, very, very old classic fantasy RPGs. But kind of uses that as a foundation to create a really interesting universe that I think does a really good job of asking interesting questions about how such a world would actually operate. I think a big appeal of Dungeon Meshi, at least even in just these first 3 episodes, I think especially with the third, is sort of getting into the like unique fantasy ecology of the dungeon, right? That, the thing you start to discover as Laios and his crew delve the dungeon is that the dungeon is unto itself. I know this word's overused. It's a biome,
right? This is a very like older school, like Gygaxian style of like dungeon construction, like where it has its own like ecology and whatnot that all intertwines. The trash golem is off in the corner eating the trash or whatever, rather than the sort of dungeon is just hole where monster is and treasure there too. And why does it show up? Dungeon. Right.
Like, it is barely even a dungeon in the way that we understand it. It is more like it's almost like a world. You go into this world where various creatures are living and have their own hierarchy. And just what I wanted to say is, like, I mean, I think that explains the strength of Dungeon Meshi, in that it is a fiction that is obviously inspired by a genuine love for these classic fantasy properties, but it is its own work. It is inspired by things that the author carries dear to their heart, as opposed to many of these these generic fantasy anime that have sort of poisoned the well, as Hiro said, which are more like, I'm going to describe what I would do in this world through, like, the thing is, like, these RPG style stories with the stat screens and the leveling up, they're almost not even stories. They're just like describing a playthrough using game terminology and game frameworks, whereas Dungeon Meshi at least is a narrative story that uses, that uses like the fundamentals of a narrative, which is
it has characters and it's telling their story. Yes,
And I think we can talk a lot about how like smartly written Dungeon Meshi is. We can talk about its world building, all the like little great subtle things it does, right? Like Laios in episode 3 saying, "Oh yeah, my first death was from an animated armor," and there's all that stuff. Of course, we could talk about the wonderful world building of Rio. But I think at its core, right, especially in the context of the first 3 episodes, I think we should really talk about Dungeon Meshi's like real strength, at least initially, which is just the core dynamic of our party, right? Laios, Arceal, Senshi, and Chilchuk, right? The
fighter mage thief.
Right, our eponymous RPG party, but just the very fun, very organic ways in which these characters bounce off each other, right?
Yeah. And I think that stands out. There's a couple of things that stand out. And me coming in here as the person with no context other than the things that you guys have shared with me. I can see how some people don't get it if they don't know at least off of one episode where like it's just like, oh, this is just a fun show where they come up with silly ideas for cooking monsters, right? Like I could see how like that's the impression you would get off of just watching the first episode.
Like, you do,
and
in a lot of the like crappier isekai shows, they will also be like, wow, the orc is a pig, so it tastes like pork.
Right. So I think that's where maybe part of why this show hasn't quite taken off yet from what I've seen. But but for me, and especially after watching the second episode, and there's some of it in the first, I think they really hammer down where they're going with that party dynamic. That's going to be sort of like the core, I'm assuming will be the emotional core of the story. Right. And like when they end episode 2 with the, you can't replace meat with bread or bread with meat or whatever, but hey, you put them together and they're really good. And it's like, oh, that's a very thinly veiled metaphor for our party learning to
throwing shade at the KFC Double Down.
Whoa. That thing is disgusting. But yes, I could definitely see where they're going with it. And they've already kind of started the foundation, and then 3, I think that's where we were starting to see the other aspect of what we were talking about with like the world building and the ecology. And so for reference for people, 3, they fight living armor, and like what is living armor actually? How would that actually work? And how can we turn that into a monster to eat?
How can we eat living armor?
Why does Laios want to eat this?
As we all know, living armor is animated by necromancy. So how can
it's a fun, and so you mix that with I guess it's three things for me. You mix the world building with I can see the potential for the character development with the relationships, and I'm sure part of it is the source material, part of it is being made by Trigger, but the presentation is very fun. Like it's just a fun show to watch.
The thing is also I think that like these first 3 episodes are mostly like comedy centric, but you can see how there is a sort of empathy going out towards the characters, even if they are roles inside a comedy. And I was thinking about like Laios is often like, oh, he is like the wacky guy. He is the bouquet, and everyone else is the Tsukomi. But I think that like he is presented in such a way that his interest is more than just something to poke fun at. Because I think that a lot of the appeal of Dungeon Meshi is in the fact that Ryoko Kui is kind of like Laios. She is interested in studying like monsters that we kind of take for granted and thinking about like, okay, how would this work? How would this organism function? Right. How would it feed itself? How would it move? How would it reproduce? How would you eat it if it were like animals in the real world? Right. And I think because of that, because the author has the same kind of freakish obsession or like special interest, let's call it that the main character has. Like that is a thing that like it is a manga that revolves entirely around her strength, and as a result she can sort of celebrate that by not making Laios constantly the butt of the joke. Like he is the butt of the joke, but he is also the hero whose like special interest saves the party in many cases and provides a lot of the humor and provides a lot of the interesting moments. So I think the reason why the Dungeon Meshi speaks to so many people is because they can sort of see themselves in that, right? Like they see like how being super interested or super fascinated by something incredibly weird or even off-putting, how that can still like define you as a person, how that can make you have good times and bad times. And I think that is reflected pretty well in the character, which is what sort of elevates this from that basic premise. Because I think I'm afraid that like, gee, if you said that the show hasn't really been taking off yet, I'm afraid that for like average Joe Schmo anime fan who like doesn't know the pedigree of the manga, who doesn't know the pedigree of Trigger, reads this and is like, oh, okay, so it's a fantasy party going down a dungeon, which comes across as a bit generic, and they eat the monsters, which comes across as, okay, weird, how can you like keep that joke funny for 13 episodes?
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's that combination that has made it so that the manga hasn't, or the anime hasn't really taken off yet, simply because you can't really promote the way.
Yeah, I'll admit.
Yeah.
3 episodes in, I'm not reading that deep into it yet. So that's probably understandable.
It is weird to describe a comedy as a slow burn, but that is kind of what Dungeon Meshi is. Right. I think, and I do mean this in multiple ways, right? I mean a slow burn in the sense that it will take time for its plot and its characters to gain more depth, but also it will take more time for the jokes to get even better.
Yeah.
There are, like, to speak to your point, Aqua, that you made about Laios, I think you could really kind of extrapolate that to the strength of Kui's, like, cast building as a whole, that I think all of the characters in Dungeon Meshi have, like, really great, well-defined personalities and relationship dynamics within the party that you're only really starting to see the beginning of right now, where each character has kind of had like a couple of main interactions with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I do think that something that even shows in the first 3 episodes is how, in a lot of ways, kind of like maybe like, like a Kaguya, like a Hinamatsuri, like the more you know these characters and the more time they spend together, the better the jokes actually get, because then they have more material to work with, right?
Right.
Like in
I mean,
episode
how
2,
many sitcoms are there that are just like, this is a guy and his family, or these people are
Right.
friends? Like, you don't need a catchy premise to sell people on your characters and your jokes, right? Like,
so like for example, right, in episode 2, right, where one of the focus is Chilchuk, the halfling rogue, and Senshi, right, the dwarf, and the ways in which they, kind of rub against each other, right? Chilchuk is a little neurotic, right? A consummate professional, right? He is always very wary of checking for traps, whereas Senshi is almost like comically unaware of his surroundings, or not unaware of his surroundings, but just has a very different set of priorities and focuses.
right. He does not need to care because he's a dwarf, and as such, he's pretty resilient. Like,
and that's just those 2 characters, right? And it's like, it's kind of the thing that I think Dungeon Meshi does so well as it goes on, is the build of like, okay, well, what about Chilchuk and Marcial? What about Marcial and Senshi? Right? What about Laios and Chilchuk? Right? Like the ways in which, by building up these characters like with organic personalities and dynamics, it means that like Dungeon Meshi then is also allowed to mix them up and also create some really fun, entertaining character dynamics.
Yeah. I can definitely see the potential there, but I haven't fully seen it yet, and I'm to take your guys' word for it that we'll get there. So
I mean,
and it's not that I haven't enjoyed episode 1 through 3, but
right, that's the thing, right? Like, these first 3 episodes, they're still pretty good. Like, and they still manage
very
to
fun. I'm
spin
enjoying myself.
what is essentially the same joke into a lot of like different creative and funny ways. Like, it's always some spin off. They come across a monster, Laios wants to eat the monster, Senshi is like, this is how I would prepare the monster, and Marcial is like, no, we're not gonna do that, but in the end she ends up liking it. But like, it shows that not only is the source material very good at turning that standard joke into something worth revisiting over and over and over again, it's also, the adaptation. Like, we haven't even mentioned that yet, but this is a good adaptation.
Yeah, we should actually talk about like Trigger's part to play in this, right? I think episode 3, like in many ways, is a very good episode, because not only does it show the source material's ability to play with its toys, right? Again, the first 2 episodes have them eating things that largely resemble animals. And then episode 3 is kind of what's meant to clue you in that, no, Kui is thinking about this on a much deeper level, right? Like, they're going to be eating things that don't even remotely resemble edible creatures. But also, this episode is simultaneously, in some ways, a very confident declaration of, this is why Trigger was chosen to adapt this manga.
It's like if the first 2 episodes were them like luring you in, like, hey, come and see, check out our like colorful, fun little thing, and then they slam the door shut behind you, lock it up, and then cart out all the freak directors they have.
It's like, now you're locked in here. Now you're locked in here with us, the Kaneda school of anime.
It's very good.
This episode 3, which was, I believe, directed by Ichigo Kano, which is this is his debut as an episode director. Correct? Is that correct? I think
so. I have to.
It's fine. This person, to my understanding, is a protege of one Kai Igarashi, who is starting to become a household name for us Trigger aficionados, to be sure. To the point where, when we talk about other Trigger shows, we say, oh, that's the Kai Igarashi episode.
Right. He also did the one episode of Heavenly Delusion with the guy who was trapped by the hot MILF dictatorship. I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, like, and it really shows kind of the strengths of like Trigger as a studio and how well they act. Like, because again, Dungeon Meshi, the manga, does not or Dungeon Meshi the anime, I would say broadly does not actually resemble the manga in terms of its technical presentation.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think Trigger does a really good job of is capturing the energy of these characters, right? Like, especially episode 3, which has all these like delightful cartoony flourishes of Marcille, right? Waving her wand around, and
because it's also not like they completely triggerified it. Like, it's not like, you know, how like sometimes when KyoAni does a show, they pour the KyoAni sauce all over it.
Right. It's not like it's not like a
middle ground. Like,
It seems to work really well with their style. I mean, that's what a good adaptation does, is like converts it into the medium,
right?
The
like,
medium,
like
right? So
I think there's like some really wonderful anime original visual gags in this episode. You know, like Marcille jiggling Laios' head like a bobblehead with the staff, or just like the way in which the living armors chase after the shield sliding on the ground. It's very good. There's a lot of very, very fun flourishes in this episode.
Yeah, like the slapstick furler is just combined also with excellent comedic timing. Like, there's one gag in the first episode where they just like Marcille like looks into the camera like she's on The Office, and then they zoom in, but it's like a low resolution. Like they didn't even redraw the frame. Like,
I mean, let it be said that Trigger are the uncontested masters of cutting corners and turning that into a strength.
Well, I would love to recount all the amazing jokes and animation moments, but we're going to have to move on.
Asama all over again, where we just name jokes that were funny.
We're going to have to move on, or this is going to be a 4-hour podcast.
All right, fine. One last thing then. I've heard some people. I've seen some. I won't name names, but I've seen some takes online, calling the Laios Fallen childhood flashback in episode 3 ugly or cartoony.
Fuck off.
And
get the hell
let me
out
tell
of
you,
here.
you ain't
cartoon.
My brother.
No,
do not DNI, do not interact.
That is
get
not
out
a
of
valid,
my house.
That's not a valid opinion.
No, in this house, when we see a Kaikarashi shot, we hoot and holler.
No hate to the
dog. Look at that cartoony dog.
Yeah, that was great. I do not. Whoever said that is not a valid person. All right, so
deserve human rights.
Dungeon Meshi good. Thankfully, Netflix is really simulcasting it and not dumping it all. So that's been nice.
Hooray, finally,
for once. So and we will be no doubt talking a lot more about that as the season goes on. So definitely one to watch. Okay, let's talk about Sasaki and Peeps. This is not a good show. I'm just going to tell everybody up front.
Okay.
But it was so absurd that I had to talk about it on the podcast. And part of me feels like it could have been good. Some universe where they could have made this work. But
one of these.
I mean, I saw this in the previews, and I was like, okay, aging salaryman gets a bird, and the bird is magical. This sounds like something Jill could like.
Comico Market.
That is entirely valid. I would have assigned it to myself as well. And yes, it is about this middle-aged salaryman, and he wants to get a pet but can't afford a cat or a dog. Which, my dude, if you're in your 40s, I would hope that you got a promotion by now. But
yeah.
Rent in Tokyo is expensive.
I mean, if you can't afford a cat from a cat shelter, you're poor man.
So he decides to look at birds instead, and he sees this one bird that seems to catch his interest, and he brings it home, and the bird starts talking, saying he's some great sage from another world or something like that. And the bird grants him a portion of his magical powers, and he begins to learn some magic spells that he starts applying to his everyday office life to make his life easier. There's a great shot in the beginning or near the beginning where during his learning montage, he has a bunch of folders on his computer that are labeled fire, ice, water, or something like that, and he's pulling up the incantations in Notepad to memorize them and stuff. I'm like, and I'm like, you know what? I'd watch that show.
This sounds like the premise to a mid-2000s Jim Carrey movie.
Yep. The problem is, and you know, the overall problem, this is a show that had an hour-long premiere, and it was not enough time for all the things they tried to do, because that is that is a fraction. All that happens in about the first 10 minutes. That's like a fraction of what the show is attempting to do. So that's one show premise, which, okay, I'd watch that. Show premise number 2. After learning some magic, the bird decides to take the dude back to its home world, because once it has a person to connect to, it can use enough magic to teleport back home or something. And now we become an isekai show temporarily, and the dude decides to make some money by picking up some like basic like office supplies and like stuff from the discount store and bringing it
selling
to
them in the isekai world.
The medieval fantasy other world.
Look at it, he's a box of matches. Isn't this cool?
Look at this ballpoint pen. Isn't it amazing? And so he starts running like a trade route from his local discount dollar store to the other world. And that's show premise number 2. Now show premise number 3.
Oh man.
This show is giving Oshinoko a run for its money in like jumping through a gazillion different hoops to get to its actual premise.
Well, at least Oshinoko had like the premiere movie was one premise, and then the TV series was another premise. This is all crammed in the premiere here.
I don't know, but like the premiere movie was also like, okay, he's a surgeon. Oh no, now he dies. Now he's a baby. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, they cut through that really fast though. This is like, and the other thing is like they plan on maintaining all 3 of these things at the same time. It's not like this is a progression. Like they're going to try to do all these things at the same time. So the third premise, he one day sees this woman getting attacked by a random guy in the streets, and he has some like weird like magic arm thing or something, and he decides, I'm going to try to stop him, and shoots an icicle at him, and between the both of them, the lady apparently also has magic powers.
And this is back in Tokyo,
in present day Japan, yes. And turns out she also has some kind of powers. Between the two of them, they managed to stop him, and she is a special agent from a secret part of the Japanese government that is looking for people with magic powers in Japan. Because that's apparently a thing, in addition to this guy who happened to learn it from his magic bird. And
is there some like shady Chinese antique seller who is selling magical birds to people in Japan? Like,
I think they're going for a. I started to think about a certain magical index where it's science versus magic.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2 different types of people getting powers. I don't think they're related yet, but
so this is like
but there's more.
Continue.
Yes, so she brings him into the secret government organization, and he is now forced to work with her. This hot anime lady is now his partner that he has to work with to go hunt down other magic users in modern day Japan, and he's got to do this while also running his isekai shop in the other world. And it wasn't clear to me whether, I didn't watch past the first episode, it wasn't clear to me whether he still has his day job, but it wouldn't surprise me if he also does that. And
gotta hustle.
The show's doing too much, is what I'm trying to say.
Like, this is the sort of, I feel like I've talked about this before. The thing about isekai is that you start, it's such a like parasitic genre, and as time has passed, like these certain subgenres or like stock plots of isekai have started to crop up, right? Like villainous shows or whatever. I sell real world things in isekai land is another one of those stock plots, and now I'm taking my isekai powers back to Japan and I'm going to be cool and badass is like another one, right? And so it's just seeing that there's so little fucking originality that now the isekai shows are just becoming, what if
Smash them together?
if we took stock plots A, B, and C and put them into one show, and it's like,
so
you can't.
the other layer to this, this is another trend I am picking up on is, this was originally like a web novel, like user submitted web novel thing.
Most isekai shows are.
Yeah, which most isekai shows are, but there's a certain like, I'm trying to coin this term, amateur chaos to it, right, of somebody who doesn't have an editor, has a lot of ideas, and they just cram everything they got into this, this web novel that they post up, which is basically, I'm writing fan fiction, but it's not based on any particular property, right? Like it's like, that level of amateurism to it, where
some writers can like handle that. Like Ryoga Narita is sort of famous for this vibe with Baku no Durarara.
Yes, but a lot of people cannot deal with this, and I can't even remember the other show I watched this season, which was also like a web novel and has suffered from the same problem. I don't even remember what it was at this point, but a lot of the isekai shows, that's where that's coming from.
I mean, Apothecary Diaries is a web novel, right? Like,
yeah, I feel like I was really feeling it on this one because there were just so many ideas that could have been like, this could have been 3 different shows.
Yeah.
And
see, like,
putting them all together did not help make it good. Like, it didn't make it interesting or like more creative feeling. It just felt like, okay, I'm watching this show now, and now I'm watching this show, and they're both bad.
I would prefer to just watch a show about some salaryman who, I don't know, figured out how to program magic into his arm, and then then gets picked up for, hey, other people have superpowers.
The first,
and then it becomes X-Men. I don't fucking know.
Right? The first original premise, when I was watching, it was like, oh, this is kind of nice. The first part where it's like, he's got his magic bird, and it's just like an office comedy, but has some magic thrown into it.
Yeah,
like and like I kind of liked the main guy too. Like because he is an adult. He doesn't act like a kid. He's like an actual adult, and it's fun. And he was kind of fun because he's generally, generic nice guy character, but he was also, when it suited him and wasn't, screwing people over too badly, perfectly willing to lie and cheat in certain circumstances. So, like, for example, because he just wants to chill and enjoy his pets. That's like all he wants to do in life. That's his goal. And so, for example, when the anime lady picks him up to work in the secret government organization, she's kind of interviewing him, and they're like, she's like, so I saw you were able to, manipulate water and turn it into ice, or create water and turn it into ice. What other powers do you have? And he's like, if I tell her about the other spells I know, it's going to make more work. And he's like, oh, nope, that's it. That's all I do. That's all I know how to do. Yeah. And he gets this very cartoonish I'm lying face on.
Right.
I'll post it in the chat for everybody here. But
he never asked for this.
Yeah, he gets this comical face on, and it's very fun. So like there was something there, and then they just kept adding. It's like, you've made me like this nice, I don't know, ice cream sundae, and then you started pouring like gravy and marinara sauce on top of it. Like it's like,
I like
there was something there that could have been fun.
I have a question about the logistics of this show. Which is like, how does he convert fantasy money to Japanese yen?
They had some.
Is it magic?
No, they had some kind of excuse for it, and I don't remember what it was, to be honest. They did address it, but it was so inconsequential that I didn't care.
I go to a pawn shop, and they buy my bronze coins.
Yeah, it was something because they were giving him gold, and you
can just buy gold ingots or turn gold or nuggets or something. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I mean,
something
like that.
If you were bringing in gold often enough to a fucking we buy gold mall shop, like, people start asking fucking questions.
I don't those places are pretty shady. I don't think they would ask questions, but there was some excuse for it. I don't remember what it was, to be honest, but so anyway, that's Sasaki and Peeps. I just want to throw that out there because it was an interesting watch for the premiere, but I did not think it was very good. And Yeah.
It exists.
It exists.
Huzzah.
Let's move on and talk about. I only put this on here because it's a hot topic, and I feel like we should mention it for the algorithm.
Do we have to? We know it's on here.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Help me out here, Iro. We got to do some numbers. We're talking about Solo Leveling, which was one of the hotly anticipated shows from this season.
Yep.
For some reason.
You know exactly why.
Yeah. So what is the actual premise?
Okay. In the modern day, 10 years ago, monsters started appearing across the world.
Okay.
Holes open up and there's dungeons inside and monsters come out of them.
Yep.
They're immune to conventional weapons.
Of course.
Only magically empowered humans can fight the monsters.
Naturally.
With, their magic powers. And once you awaken to your powers, you have a set amount of power that you have that does not change. So, and of course, you're ranked with a letter.
Okay.
You can go from, E rank all the way up to S rank.
Wait, let me guess. The main character is the lowest possible rank.
Oh, yeah. He's the weakest hunter of them all. The E rank.
The lowest of the E rank.
But after a traumatic experience inside of a dungeon, he gets the power to level up. Unlike every other hunter, he gets his little video game stat screens that show him his stats. He can, if he kills monsters, he gets experience points. And he gets quests that get him more experience points. And he can become the strongest hunter.
Okay.
Because he is the solo person who can level up.
Okay, so I need to ask. Is there a reason why this show and not every other isekai show that people...
For whatever... I don't know. For whatever reason...
I'm not saying it's something that you would have to agree with. I'm just saying...
Right.
Is there some...
The number one Korean webtoon...
Because it started as a Korean webtoon, right? Which is in color and which can be read easily on your phone. Like, I think that's a major reason. It's more easily accessible than manga.
The comic has, a fairly polished art style, I guess.
Yeah.
It is flashy.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, it looked nice production.
I mean, it looked nice. First episode looked nice. A1 does a good job. It's like, this is just one of those.
Yep.
Yeah, because everything you said, there was nothing you said in there that sounded unique or interesting compared to
I agree.
One of these shows.
It might be because this is Korean and therefore, there's a whole other, influx of an audience via K-pop and K-drama that isn't necessarily, that didn't necessarily come here to this point.
Yeah, remember when we were all, remember when they were making that,
God of High School?
Oh, sure. That one, Strongest High School. What the fuck?
God of High School.
God of High School,
and we were all like,
or Tower of God. Yeah.
I guess that must be a big deal. I guess.
Yes.
But that was that was like generic shonen battler anime. Right. This is going in the isekai trash pile, I guess. But I don't know.
I don't know either. It's
that's probably the only thing that's interesting to me is why did this show rise to the top of the heap compared to everything else? But
yeah, I don't know.
I'm not seeing any. I'm not.
And it's like we've had
anything.
I don't want to be mean to other people about their tastes. However, it's like we got a comment on the blog, for example, that's like, no, it's trust me, it's really good. There's a reason that this was so anticipated, and the story has so much depth later. And it's like I don't understand where you're coming from. I do not see the arc of this that has anything interesting to say. Right.
So I guess my question, Arrow, since you watched the first episode, so of course we are talking about the cultural magnitude of Solo Leveling,
right? I mean,
right?
Yeah,
and it's
I've seen this at Target, right?
Yeah. So this being in some ways one of those early progenitors, right, along with a magical reincarnation and such is right. Is it simply just bad, or is this one of the ones we have to blame for like the weird resentful incel angle that a lot of isekai take, right?
Okay,
like,
you know what I will say to the show's credit compared to a lot of those isekai shows, he is not some weird incel, right?
Like, does a woman condescend to him in the first 5 minutes of the episode, and then he strips her naked by the end? You know what I mean?
But
instead, he's
Hunter
like,
in Korea is a girl, like
right? And it's instead, he's getting beat up, and then the other girl's like, "Oh, you! I just can't leave you alone because you keep getting your ass kicked, and I have to heal you." Right? It's like he's just like.
Yeah,
a
she
normal
doesn't
guy
die at the end of the first episode.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
so
that-
it is
that
back
is
to the
like-
old, the old ways. Of,
I mean, what the anime or Trinrindo is real. Go boy, the protagonist of this isekai show is not a total shithead.
Man,
It's just a guy, right?
We have fully codified the like isekai Overton window. As
I know. Yeah,
yeah.
yes. It's like
Okay, so this, but
the best thing I have to say about the show is the protagonist is like seems like an okay guy, just a normal
he's just
dude.
a regular
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. All right. So this is
there was one
this
thing
is
I
old,
like about
though,
this show,
right?
which is like the dungeons appear in like random places. So at the like when the guy goes to the dungeon, there's like a dude who has like a food truck, except he's selling like weapons and potions and stuff. So that dude like drives his truck around Seoul to wherever the new portal opens. I like
mean,
that.
Yeah, characterizing adventurers as emergency workers rather than, I don't know, glory seekers is something that you could get something out of. I don't see the show doing any of that.
Yeah. All right.
Like there's like a hunters guild, and it's like it's run by like a CEO kind of dude, like it's some kind of zaibatsu or whatever the Korean equivalent is. But like it doesn't get any more creative than that. Like,
yeah. Okay, but you're saying it's old. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just been around a long time.
I don't think it's that old.
Let
me see here. The I don't know when the web novel. Okay,
I genuinely think it just this is a major thing because
coming from a different
because it is Korean, because like we may not have noticed this, but like Korean pop culture has like completely overtaken Japanese pop culture while we weren't looking. So like
this is from the web novel is from 2016.
Okay, so not that old. All right. So I don't know, man. It just who knows how the hearts of isekai fans operate. Maybe it really is just a different demographic coming into it. I don't know.
I guess, but I don't understand, and I don't know that I ever will understand.
All right. Well, at least it doesn't sound like the worst of these. So hey, if people are enjoying
it is instead merely dull.
Yeah. If it's just boring to us, then hey, everybody else enjoy it. If you're enjoying it,
you.
I'm not going to condemn
level heads out there.
Yeah, I'm not
knock yourselves out.
I'm not going to condemn it if it doesn't have slavery and sexual assault and all that. So at least
Yeah.
All right. Aqua has a totally valid point. Yeah. Like we are basing this purely off of a single episode. For all we know, Solo Leveling has like a actually slavery is good arc. Like 2 years from now, like we actually shouldn't like make any declarative statements.
Based on asterisk based on the first episode. Then we'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's keep things moving. And I wanted to talk about A Sign of Affection.
Yeah.
Did you watch it, Aqua?
Yes. I did.
Okay.
So
I don't. This is one of those shows where I don't know. I did watch the first 2 episodes. I don't know just based on my own personal preferences and what I want to watch if I'll keep watching it, but it is a good show worth mentioning because I think it's worth watching and judging for yourself if it's something you want to watch. So, but yeah, this is it's a pretty straightforward shoujo romance story. with the hook being that I kind of don't want to say hook, but the kind of unique aspect of it is that the main character is she's deaf, and what I liked, I mean, the romance part of it is very cute. I like that the main couple seems to be pretty straightforward with their like feelings and everything. There's not a lot of like dancing around, and there's a little bit of it, but not like compared to other shows in the genre. Like they kind of get right
it
to
is
the
a bit
point
more
of
mature, like, you know, like the characters are like, okay, I'm interested in pursuing a relationship with this person.
I'm going to get to know this person.
Their contact details.
Yes, this person's cute. They seem nice. I want to get to know them better, right? Which is nice.
I mean, there's also a reason why they are, you know, in college as opposed to high school.
Yes, it is, and they are college age, so that they are, you know, portrayed as a little more mature. I don't like the childhood friend character. I don't like where they're going with that. Did you watch
that's in the second episode, I think. Okay. You're not talking about the girl.
Yeah, so my one kind of red flag is...
Let me guess, he is like violently protective of main girl? Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, and he's like... But they're of course they're framing it as but he really cares about her because he took the time to learn sign language because he cares so much about her, even though he literally tells her deaf people shouldn't go to college because it's not safe.
Oh God!
And I'm like, dude, you're not coming back from that one. There is no way you're coming back to that one for me. So I don't like that they're trying to introduce some kind of and to be fair, she does not seem to have any romantic interest in him whatsoever. Right. But I feel like the show just
something
being...
like that is also like a very like it is reflective of a common attitude, I think, towards people who have disabilities like blindness or deafness. Like this is also a very like prominent thing in A Silent Voice, for example, where like Shoko, the main girl's mother, also says similar things of like, oh, you know, you can't live a normal life, you can't go out there and do things that normal kids do because you're deaf, sorry. And like a lot of the show is also about exploring how she is on one hand concerned but also stifling her daughter. So there is still like a chance that they explore something like that with this childhood friend character.
It's still a shitty thing to say, but yeah, as Aqua says, it is a common cultural, I mean, again, maybe not a cultural sentiment, it is a common refrain in it is a common go-to piece of dialogue in pieces of fiction in Japan.
But you should not burden people with the way in which you are different. Like,
do you say that to the person's face, though?
Well, in both cases, they did.
If you're a blunt bad boy, you do, I guess.
Okay, well, anyway, it's a fine line to walk with that, and I feel like they did not do a good job in the second episode with him. But I also don't think they're going to take him too seriously as like a love triangle thing, but he's there. I mean, he's there for a reason, right? So that concerns me a little bit. But otherwise, the romance aspect of it is very cute. And, you know, I'm not an expert on this, but I did like, you know, I did a little reading up about the background and how much research the author did on, you know, portraying, you know, the life of a deaf person. And I do like one thing I wrote about in the first look post that I did for it was like, they don't like hand wave the challenges of being a deaf person. Like, for example, I feel like it's very common in media to have a deaf person be able to read lips, so you can just make it so they just understand what everybody's saying. And this girl can read lips, but like so they kind of show how limited that is.
Yeah. like main dude explicitly like makes an effort to talk slowly and
so like
well so she can read lips, right?
She can't always catch every single word, and like there's a bit where she's like they're like at a diner or something, and she sees people talking across the room and she doesn't know what they're saying, you know, because she can't read everybody's lips at once. So like I feel like little things like that are kind of a nice touch that show.
I think that's
like,
very interesting,
they put research
because they
into
don't they don't play this as like, oh, woe is me, you know,
Yeah,
I'm deaf.
yeah.
Whereas they focus on more like specific issues, like, for example, you know, when you're deaf, you cannot join in on a conversation. Someone needs to actively involve you in a conversation in order for
Right.
you to be part of it, right? Like
And
those
they
kinds
keep
of
it
things.
they keep it positive because then they'll show how she overcomes that, right? It's not like
Right,
she's,
right,
you know,
right.
it's not like it's, you know, dragging her down or anything. She's just, it's a challenge she has to overcome.
And it's also like, I was initially a bit disappointed that they didn't cast an actual deaf person to voice her, but then like I realized, oh, she has a lot of like interior monologue, and it would be
it wouldn't
insane
make
to
sense for her.
portray that in any other way than to have her speak, even though she like was born deaf, and as a result,
so like probably
like would not have an understanding of language the way we do it. Not that I can speak with any authority on that, but
and considering like probably at least 50% of the dialogue is in her head, it's probably best that they did that.
But I mean, they do some nice things. Like I like how they cut the sound and the music whenever like we follow her perspective. I like how like they portray certain facts of her life as realistic, like how, for example, her parents don't know sign language, which is something that is like both which is incredibly like sad, but also probably kind of realistic.
Like
I feel like I don't know. I feel like parents.
I feel like at least
would be potentially the first to learn sign language.
Again, I don't.
Deaf, but
I wouldn't know, but we can only.
But
guess
I can
on that
see,
one, but it does seem weird.
Like from that same like attitude, her parents being like, "Oh, but you know, we should not adapt to you. You should adapt to society."
Right.
Like from like a way like that kind of perspective.
Right, not
so,
that
like,
that's a good
you're going
perspective,
to find ways to communicate without burdening others with having to learn sign language.
Like, I don't know about that, but and again, coming back to her childhood friend, that's why they make such a big point of, oh, he learned sign language so he could talk to her and all that. So
congratulations, basic human decency.
I was gonna say, you did the bare minimum.
And they show like I appreciate the main guy is he gets a little borderline, but he's not a creep. Like he's like
that's also something I like in that, like there's like a bit where he like she's like her thoughts are sort of trailing, and then he like puts his hand on her head and like tilts her head up to make her look at his face so he can say something so she can read his lips.
He actually has a reason for the head pats.
She says like, oh, why do I interpret everything he does in like the best possible way? Right. That like makes me think of like, that's like an interesting nuance, because like you could see what that guy does as like invading on her physical space without her consent, but on the other hand, like you see that he has no like ulterior motives with that. Like he's just like looking for the best way to get her attention so he can say something to her,
right?
Like and that's like
and they reinforce that in the, I didn't watch episode 3, but in episode 2, like they just kind of reinforce that he's actually a pretty nice guy, which made me kind of hate her friend even more. But I was like, I'm like, dude, girl, leave him. Like, you got this like hot, super nice guy who's like learning sign language, and he's like a world traveler and interesting. And like, just stick with him. Like,
that's something I also do find interesting, because like, it's clear that the show wants to be more than like, oh, I'm a dainty waif and this boy is going to save me. Like it's more nuanced than that, because like I think they're trying to go for a kind of thing where like he doesn't just represent, you know, boy who has basic human decency to be nice to deaf girl, but like he's also like, he's the world traveler, he's a polyglot, he has a lot of like friends from all over the world. So like he sort of like represents a life outside of the like sheltered life that she
that's
knows, right?
The theme they're going. Yeah, and they
that's like
again,
an interesting angle, or at least more interesting to me than like, I am unlovable because I am disabled, but this boy loves me, like which is like what like 90% of shoujo would go for, like.
Yeah, and they again, that's another thing they emphasize in the second episode, because she kind of gives a speech to that effect of like, my whole life people have been sheltering me, and I've got this guy who's like a gateway to the rest of the world in some ways. And
also, they seem to be focusing a lot on a bunch of different other characters. Like there's like her college friend and the manager dude.
Yeah,
and it's just overall like portrayed. It's cute. It has decent comedic timing. The performances are good. Like there are some odd directorial choices. Like in the first episode, there's like a sudden bit where they just like replicate a manga panel, including the text on screen. Which is
that's just anime comedy, man.
Yeah, that just goes. Yeah, that's just like completely comes out of nowhere. There's still too much use of the shoujo freeze frame swelling violins.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I don't know. But I liked it. It's cute.
Yeah. So again, for my personal preferences, I don't know. We'll see. I might watch a little more. It's very cute, and I think it's worth. Like, I think it's a good show worth watching, and it just depends on whether it's to your like preferences or not. But
yeah, I mean, you don't get a lot of like straight up shoujo romance shows like this anymore, especially if you like kick out all the ones that are like creepy.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Sengoku Youko.
Yeah. Sengoku Youko.
So, Ira, do you want to refresh us on what Sengoku Youko is about?
Sengoku Youko is by noted mangaka Satoshi Mizukami, and
the GOAT.
One of the best to ever do it, as far as I'm concerned. And the thing about Sengoku Youko is that it's a long story.
Other mecha anime.
It's a long story. Maybe you can't see the whole arc of the story from the first 2 episodes, but
some might call Sengoku Youko a slow burn.
But in the first 2 episodes, we are in the depths of the Sengoku period, and the siblings for world reformation. This fox spirit and this other guy who has learned the sage arts are, traveling around, righting wrongs.
Well, importantly, this is a setting in which like humans and demons and such
exist
and are fighting each other.
It's a supernatural battle series.
Yes.
One of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so again, as someone who did not read the manga, but I do have the context of experiencing other works by Mizukami.
Yes.
I once again can see why people would watch one episode of this and say this is the most basic ass shonen adventure show.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. I truly think that like Dungeon Meshi's qualities do like show themselves.
It
not necessarily in like a big bombastic way you'd expect.
Yes.
I will say, as somebody who like will trumpet Mizukami's merits to the ends of the world, also as somebody who last read Sengoku Youko like maybe 9 years ago, even I am struggling to remember. Like, I am watching it because I know Mizukami never misses. I know because I remember reading the last chapter of Sengoku Youko and going, God damn, what a G. Holy shit, the greatest to ever do it. So I can tell you, yeah, don't worry, this manga this show's a bang. The story's a banger. It's gonna end great. But here in episode 1 and 2, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What happened?
Okay. I will say again, I at least have the context of experiencing other Mizukami works, and I can see little hints of how the characters are going to grow, like what their character development arcs are going to be, and I know, unlike other shonen shows that might have those things, I know Mizukami always delivers on that. Right. So I have a reason to continue watching it, but I'll tell you, if I had no other context,
I know.
After episode 1, I would have been like,
Let's just all take the wins where we can get them.
Yeah.
We finally have a Mizukami anime that doesn't look like complete dog shit.
It's true.
Yes.
It's
so it
true.
does look.
It looks fine. It looks
pretty good.
It even looks good in some spots.
Yeah, I think it looked even better than I was expecting.
Yes.
In the parts where it counts.
But,
you say all this, but these first episodes, like, even if they were kind of generic, like, they had a lot of like fun things going on. There was
no, they're not bad. Okay,
good character dynamic. It was funny. It had like surprises. It had good action. Like, it didn't pull its punches, especially at the ending of episode 2. So it was still like pretty solidly entertaining. Like, you can say that Mizukami's works always start off generic, and I would agree, but his strengths as a writer do show from the very beginning. Like, he does manage to convince you to stick with him.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
It's not the first couple episodes are not bad. I'm not saying they're bad.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you didn't have any other context, I don't like if I got assigned Sengoku Youko for first looks this season, and I didn't know who wrote it. I did. You guys had never told me anything about it. Right. I probably would have hit it with a for fans of the genre or something.
It's like, oh yeah, this is
verdicts
fine.
It was fine. It was fine. It was perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. But I'm gonna move on with my life because I'm not usually into these kinds of shows.
Right.
And but again, I know enough to know I can see the seeds being planted.
Right.
And,
but we're in a world where somebody may watch this for these first few episodes and go like, "Oh, I mean that dude where they made that really terrible anime a couple years ago that looked like shit. Why would I watch this? It must suck."
Oh,
right. And so I'm like,
look, some authors are look, man, some authors are just doomed. All right, like I've just accepted, like Satoru Noda will never be vindicated by history.
I mean, on the other hand, people also like Demon Slayer, which is also the most generic shit in the universe. So
no, here's the thing: people like Demon Slayer because it got a UFO table anime
it's
adaptation.
Like super flashy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it can be overstated how much. Like, I mean, I'll be real, man. Frieren is hugely assisted by its adaptation. Like, we're not talking about it this week because, we're talking about new anime this season, but, I really wonder if people have anything good to say about the last couple of episodes of Frieren.
We'll find out.
If it weren't for its, like, overwhelmingly high production value.
We will find out another time.
Yes.
But,
look.
I just,
they're fine.
I think I like Sengoku Youko. I think if you are finding things that you are enjoying in these first 2 episodes, like, I'll beg you to stick with it because it really goes some places, I think, and maybe it takes time to get there, but, you can see the seeds. I can see the seeds because I know what they grow into, but
yeah. So this is why you should be listening to the GLORIO chat, because we're here to put you on to the shows
right
that you might not have caught your attention.
And you know what, to those who might say, but Hiro, you were judging solo leveling so harshly based on 1 episode, and yet after 1 to 2 episodes of Sengoku Youko, you were telling people to stick with it. And to that I say, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So there are things I think you can pick up by the second or third episode for sure. Did they do 3 episodes yet? I've watched so much anime in the past 40 hours. I'm trying to remember. 3, but okay, that's right. There's only 2 episodes. Yeah, I think by the end of the second episode, anybody should be able to start to pick up kind of where they're headed with the characters and stuff. But
right, we have Hapless Samurai Shinsuke, who is
yeah. I think it's important to note so like for example,
not a samurai.
Yeah, when he's like doing his hot-blooded shonen protagonist nonsense in episode 2, I think it's important to note that the rest of the characters stop being an annoying idiot. Right? Yes. It is not.
He is a blowhard who maybe can do it when it counts, but the rest of the time is in over his depth, and that is, an important part of his growth as a character, his arc as a character.
Yes,
Jinka's a piece of shit who is an edgelord who says, "I hate all humans, man." And that's an important part of his character growth.
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing I would highlight that Mizukami always does and never fails is his character growth, right?
Yeah.
Like the characters are not the same characters at the end of the series as they were at the beginning.
Yeah.
And from what you guys are telling me, that will be the case here, right? So
what was you said, Jay, the other day? It's like Mizukami has more consistent endings than basically anyone else out there. Like, he has had several series, and what I'll say is all of them end well.
Yes.
Like, they have good endings, and how many other creators out there can you say that of with straight face?
Mizukami has more and more consistent endings than, like, basically any other mangaka that's ever lived.
Yeah.
In this one highly specific metric, Satoshi Mizukami, bless his heart, rest in peace, blows Kentaro Miura out of the water.
He died for our sins.
Like, it's not even close. It's a 10-0 matchup.
Oh yeah, hey,
you're talking about endings specifically.
Yeah,
even Planet Wiz
on a technical knockout, TKO.
Yeah.
And and that's also like, there's just, I watch Sengoku Youko, and I, both episodes, I've just thought to myself, God, there's so much more to come that is not even visible, not visible from
for me. I am just looking forward to it, because as someone who knows that they had positive emotional feelings at the end of reading Sengoku Youko,
right.
but can only remember 3 separate individual moments from the story.
Oh man,
I'm like, yeah, this should be fun.
Yeah,
I look forward to remembering these things again.
Well, stick with it, everybody.
Please
stick with it.
Stick with it.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about our next show with this wonderful title, Cherry Magic. 30 years of virginity can make you a wizard. Okay,
find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Before I get into the actual show, this title, I just assumed, it was gonna be an isekai show about a 30-year-old dude who obviously is a virgin and gains magical powers, and he gets transported to another world where he gets a harem of hot ladies that start coming on to him, but if he has sex, he loses his powers. That's what it writes itself, right?
It says something about, I think, our relative ages and culture, our backgrounds of what an anime like this would be.
Right.
That my conception of Cherry Magic, 30 Years of Virginity Can Make You a Wizard, is a modern-day supernatural comedy in which a hapless salaryman is fated to become the most powerful wizard.
And
thus,
so he cannot have sex. The fortune teller on the street is you can't.
Yes, and then acquires a harem of 99 hot succubus babes who are trying to seduce him.
If you nut, then Satan will conquer Earth.
Exactly, right? Because
that's an episode title.
I feel like that's the premise of one of these anime from the eras of 2004 to 2011.
And then from 2012 to 2020.
You understand what Gel described as 2012 to present?
Yes. Yeah. So, needless to say, this show is none of those things.
Right.
It actually, it was okay. I watched the first episode, and Aqua, I know you did too. You wrote the first post on it, but
yes.
But what is it?
I mean, it's simply the title refers to a common Japanese saying / internet meme that if you go without sex for 30 years, you get magic powers, and like that is what happens in the show. You have
Yes.
your guy who's
clear.
like down on his luck. He's not very good with girls, and as a result, he is a virgin at 30. And he awakens to magical powers that allow him to read minds, basically read minds when he of the people who he touches.
Yeah, so he has to touch them, right?
That's Isn't this Amagi Brilliant Park's premise?
No.
Oh, okay.
So whenever
he also got the power to read minds of people he touched.
I don't think he has powers, does he?
No, in Amagi Brilliant Park, he had like a previous career as like a.
Yeah, but didn't he have mind reading powers?
I think his that as a kid he was like a fake medium psychic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and never mind.
Honestly, I don't remember him having powers, but yeah.
That's the show with the girl named 50 Cent, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Where the guy's called Kanye West and the girl is called 50 Cent. Yeah.
Yeah, that aged well. But anyway, this show, yes, so he does gain the ability to read minds if he is touching the person.
Right.
And
at first it is like awkward because whenever he grazes someone on the train or in the elevator, he's like, oh no, I'm invading on their privacy. But then he like accidentally grazes the hand of a hot dude at work, and it turns out that this hot dude is in love with him.
Whoa!
And the dude is like, what?
Yeah.
No, actually, not really. Like, there is not a lot of, but we're both guys. How is that possible? Like,
yeah, they don't really.
They don't do that thing.
Okay.
Like, it's mostly just like, why does this, just handsome,
it's like, why me?
Social butterfly kind of dude. Why is he so interested in, scruffy old me?
Yeah,
and that it's just basically, their romance because they're drunk from the mandatory after work drinking party, and oh no, it turns out I will have to stay the night at your apartment, hot colleague, and like those kinds of things. But it's all like very like innocent and wholesome, and like most of the jokes are about like dude reads other dude's mind, and other dude is like weirdly horny, and dude is like, oh no, is he going to try anything funny? And then no, turns out that like the guy's just a nice dude who may have like lurid thoughts but doesn't act on them because he's a decent guy. Like,
which I appreciate. They're very unambiguous about his feelings for him. Like at one point he's talking about licking his neck or something, and they're like, okay, no way to misinterpret that. But I think the best the best description I saw was in the Crunchyroll comments. Somebody said this is my new boss is goofy but actually gay.
That's
which is actually a pretty accurate description, I think, of what is going on here. So, and that show, I mean, I only watched an episode or whatever, but Artemis really liked it, and it was pretty good. It's a similar vibe here, where it's
it's like just a wholesome, like nice romance. I think it deliberately tries to like shave some of the edge off of, or at least, which is common in BL, or which the genre is at least infamous for.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and just tries to be, the nice people being nice and falling in love and having butterflies in their stomach and like, only doing things with consent,
Yes. Yeah. I hope that becomes like, I mean, again, we're not the experts in the genre, but like our perception of how BL normally works. I hope out there are more stories like this than our old concepts of it. Yeah,
reasons why I wanted to watch this, because I'm the guy who always complains about Yuri. So I was like, maybe I should actually watch a BL show, and this was like considered to be pretty popular in the genre. Like there was a popular live action drama adaptation of it a couple of years ago, and now it's getting an anime. So I'm like, I'll check this out. And like the impressions are mostly, positive. I get the feeling like it's very fluffy. It doesn't really seem to go into the character's psychology a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's very like surface level. Like,
Yeah,
I love you because I think you look cute, and like I love you because you were nice to me, and like
yeah. I don't think this
not
is
much of
this is not going to be like I don't get the impression this is going to be deep or dramatic in any way at any point. Which is fine. In fact, I want to, like I'm saying, like I would like to see more of those types of shows that aren't like life and death serious. In this genre, I mean, the last one I can remember watching was Given,
right?
And even that had, but like that was like 75% light and fluffy and like 25% deadly serious. But
Given had like some meat on its bones.
Yeah, that's still
I think here really the intention really is to just be comfort food. You tune in every week just to see these two dorks like being nice to each other, and it gives you a nice feeling. Like,
and I'm glad. I feel like we're making progress that we can do this with two guys and it not being weird, right? It's
that's the thing. Like they're like they are like this kind of like saccharine romance is not my thing, but I like how they don't have to do the typical framing of like, oh, this is scandalous, this is salacious, and
what's wrong with me? Why am I attracted to this
sexuality of these beasts in heat? Like, this is just like, it's nice. Like, you don't get to like. LGBT themed manga are very often, and it's gotten a lot better in recent years, but it's very like often like lurid, like the manga or the anime is screaming at you. It's like, oh, this is unnatural, this is scandalous, this is saucy, like like a 50s pulp novel, like
right.
Vixens doing the devil's deed with one another, like
yeah.
And I'm glad we're finally moving on from this. Like,
yes, it's nice to see that, and I feel like it's with especially in anime, they're a lot more prone to do that with women. So to see them doing it with men is even more impactful, I think,
because something gender roles,
right?
Yeah.
So like I feel like we've seen an uneven amount of progress with how they depict relationships between women versus relationships between men, and it's good to see something this unambiguous and normalizing. So, and it's good, and like it's fun, like it's a cute show, like it's I think it's worth checking out. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about Metallic Rouge.
Yeah. Metallic Rouge. Bones' 25th anniversary series.
Yeah.
Well, talking about a show where like any gay subtext is probably going to be baiting more than explicit.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are
in a perfect callback to the 80s.
Yeah.
Does anybody count if your first time is with an android?
Does anybody know what the show is actually about?
Yeah,
I mean, I watched both episodes.
I mean,
it's fairly straightforward. It's just that the way they decided to kind of introduce it is a little overwhelming. But yeah, as Eero said, it's anime Blade Runner.
Right.
I know there's like some kind of artificial humans that have to do space heroin every day, right? To survive.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like some of the robots have gone too advanced, so they need to be put down. By the government? Question mark?
Well, by another robot, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's in many ways. So obviously the background of Metallic Rouge, right, is yes, as was stated earlier, it's Bones' big anniversary project. It's an anime original, and it is being spearheaded by Yutaka Izubuchi. Mecha people will know that name better. He is probably one of the foremost mecha designers of the 90s. As a director, he is known for directing Razafon.
Is this the guy who designed the bots for Star Driver and Planet Captain Earth?
No, that is Shigeto Koyama. No, you talk to Izubuchi's... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because I see the same kind of like this, like more like slender.
I could see that.
Like fabulous kind of robot as opposed to like chunky. Yeah. But yeah, not the same guy. Okay.
No. That was Shigeto Koyama, who now works at Trigger.
Yutaka Izubuchi is probably mostly known in the mecha design sphere for his work on Char's Counterattack.
Pat Labor.
Yes, and Pat Labor. So the thing I feel like about Metallic Rouge, right, is again, so it's because it's being spearheaded by a dude who was very prominent in the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. Metallic Rouge feels like a late 80s sci-fi OVA transplanted into 2023 for both good and ill, I think.
Like, especially like the combination of like the gritty cyberpunk aesthetics with like two hot girls who do shit and make jokes. Like,
it feels very of that era. And presentationally, from a visual standpoint, I think that works very well in its favor. I think Metallic Rouge is probably one of the nicest looking shows of the season, if not the nicest looking show in some spots.
Especially when it pops off. Like
it's
really they save it for the fight scenes, but yes, it looks
visual directing is very strong on this one. Like, this is, but again, when I say good and ill, I mean, in many ways, Metallic Rouge feels like an 80s sci-fi OVA, which often asks the question, can you tell a story based purely on vibes? And the answer is...
What if the cops were hot?
Maybe. That's every anime.
I know. Yeah.
What if the cops were hot? Come on, that's all of them.
I know.
Hot cops.
I know, but
hot cops.
I would trying to find a not hot cop in anime would be like looking for a piece of hay in a needle stack, man.
Yeah. So okay. Anyways. I want to push back a little bit because full disclosure, I wasn't really super impressed with this other than the visuals, but I could they're definitely taking inspiration from that era of like the 80s, early 90s OVAs. I don't think in execution it still feels like an anime made in 2024 to me. Even though there's some like,
if it was made in the 80s, there would be more gore in it. Like,
even though there's even though it's like maybe the art direction and stuff is taking direction for that. I don't know. It still feels like a modern day anime to me in that regard. I don't remember anyone riding a motorcycle. I feel like that's important, but maybe I missed that.
But time.
and even like. I feel like it could have been more colorful and like flamboyant, but I don't know. I feel like
maybe. I mean, the thing is, it's trying to have its cake and eat it, right? You have on one hand this very like moody, grim cyberpunk aesthetic, and then there's also these two like cutesy anime girls.
Yeah, I feel like
quirky things like.
And you know what?
You're just describing Bubblegum Crisis.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish the show was Bubblegum Crisis.
Dude, fucking.
That's my point. It's not Bubblegum Crisis. Like, I can see the inspiration.
Okay, fine. Yeah, you're right. It isn't. All right, look, nothing can be Bubblegum Crisis. Nothing can ever be the first 7 minutes.
They're not playing
Bubblegum Crisis.
Hurricane in the
Yeah. So
okay. So I think, in all seriousness, Jel, I think your criticisms are on point. That it is trying to echo that vibe, that feeling, but in terms of execution, it's not quite there, right? It is not. It does not actually have the same like level of unrestrained bombast that those OVAs often carry themselves with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because it also sort of tries to be a like noirish mood piece until it all pops off, right? And like the question is whether it actually pulls that off. Like in the first episode, there's a lot of like conspiracy, intrigue, like the villains having a lot of like weighty conversations about proper nouns, and then the two main girls sort of come in, and the final fight like raises some questions about like, are these girls actually the good guys? Because like,
right,
like the person they're supposed to be hunting down is making all these arguments, and main girl just sort of dismisses them all.
Yeah, and then like, but then like the second episode
happens, and
yeah.
I suspect this show will follow a sort of format of like of short arcs where it's like, who here is the member of the Immortal Nine that they're trying to take down? Like, which of these characters is going to be that person? And it's like, when I watched episode 1, it reminded me the way it is written. Episode 1 reminds me a lot more of like a Western media than anime, in the sense of like, we are coming in late to like the third case of this thing. It's like, oh yeah, we've already killed 2 of them. We're coming in late at the tail end of their scheme to nab number 3, and it's just like, deal with it, figure it out, and we will move on to the next thing.
And I will be clear, I don't think I actually mind that part of like,
right. I'm not saying that's
Rouge's introduction. No, I'm not implying that. I think where some of our like trepidation with this show comes from, again, why I said this reminds me a lot of an 80s anime OVA for good and ill, is like, I mean, again, Metallic Rouge has decided to be one of those stories about artificial personhood and like
the tail of Pluto.
Yeah, those AI people being part of what it seems to be some sort of like oppressed underclass, and
the labor force,
right, and how the villains are members of that oppressed underclass, but one of our heroes is also a member of that oppressed underclass, and it's like, as always, it's like, look, I have nothing against that premise. In fact, I like that premise, but hey, Bones, what are you gonna do with that, huh? It's like, I see Bones over here picking up this like toy, this very like delicate toy, and I'm like, you gotta
careful.
All right, careful. Don't just throw it on the ground like you always do.
So I think ultimately, like, I enjoyed watching it, and I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. Like just the spectacle alone is fun. The characters are pretty fun. I like that Rouge is kind of goofy. Like,
episode 2, it did a lot to endear
especially
me
especially in episode 2, right, when she's like, barking like a dog and stuff like that. So that's fun. So there's stuff going on there that's fun to watch. I just feel like, and this is totally a gut feeling, this is not deep analysis, I don't have any hard evidence or any reason to back this up. My gut feeling is this is a trap.
Oh yeah, no. Is this another high card in the making, right?
Precedent has taught us that anime rarely ever gets better.
Like, I feel like this show is going to disappoint us at some point down the line.
Yeah.
And I don't have the vibes I'm getting from what we've seen so far, I don't know if I trust the writing to handle any kind of like competent story or something. Like, I don't know, but and also, I hate to be this guy, but Bones Original is not the best track record, right? But
no.
So I don't know. I'm extremely skeptical, but I'll keep watching for now. Is where I'm at.
It's really fascinating to me that and this will make sense when we reach the end of this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That this season just coincidentally has the long-awaited return of 2 notable figures in mecha anime, making stories about gay robots.
Mm-hmm.
Just really, really interesting.
They Witch from Mercury was last year.
It inspired just a new wave, didn't it?
They went,
you say that, but like every mecha anime is about gay robots.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Find the straightest mecha anime challenge brackets impossible.
I guess
Darling in the Franks.
Are we,
that's too easy.
Oof.
that's too easy.
Yikes.
I guess would we say Metallic Rouge is a mecha anime? I guess we would, huh?
Look, it's closer to Tokusatsu than
yes,
mecha.
yes. Well, but is
Okay.
Toku is mecha?
There's some overlap.
Yes,
There's overlap.
you know.
Yeah.
Look, if Gridman is a mecha anime, then
Right, but Gridman was always notable for being way closer to a mecha anime than other Ultra series.
Okay, I shouldn't have opened this can of worms on this podcast.
He's got all the attachments.
Unlike other
Akane Shinjo going like, what the hell is this bullshit? This is basically a robot now. I hate robots.
You activated a trap card, Gel.
Yeah. All right. That was my bad.
Yeah, I'm probably a little... I don't have high hopes necessarily, but I'm just like, sure, take me along for the ride. Whatever.
I really
ride this train off the cliff.
Yeah. I really like that OP, which specifically uses that one snare drum that always showed up in 80s anime OPs.
Yes.
And,
yeah, the OP and the ED are good. Also, I miss the shout out to the Sengoku Youko ED getting budget Calafina.
Yeah, that did happen.
Which is Calafina? Yes. It's literally 1/3 of Calafina.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Yes, exactly. I'm saying it's
and Wakana from Calafina.
Yes, it's literally budget Calafina. You get 1/3 diet Calafina. Just diet Calafina.
1/3 of the calories.
Yes,
the Calafineries.
I also really like that ridiculous English insert song in Metallic Rouge.
The moment has come for fighting.
Yes, and they've clearly composed 8 different variations of that theme song.
Yeah. So the vibes are good, but I don't know, man. I think it's a trap. We'll see.
Probably. I mean, yeah.
Probably.
I think the moment-to-moment dialogue is pretty strong, actually. But
yeah, it's episode 2 especially. I liked episode 2 more than episode 1. I think. But
yeah, episode 2 had Sonic Grandma or whatever.
The Turbo Granny.
Yep, Turbo Granny's always fun. So I will say yes. 2 felt I kind of enjoyed 2 more than that first episode. So maybe that's a positive.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think it's gonna be super good, but I'm along for the ride.
I hope I'm wrong.
We'll see.
All right. Let's talk about Bucchigiri.
Yeah.
Last minute add to our list here.
Yeah.
So, remind me what this one was about. This was.
Oh boy.
Okay. No. Hold up.
Was this delinquents or something?
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. So, Gel, if you don't know anything about Bucchigiri, all right, humor me here.
Okay.
So, if I were to describe Bucchigiri as so Bucchigiri is about a newly transferred high school student named Arajin, who is starting his first day at his new high school, but his new high school is dominated by all kinds of hardcore delinquents. But he wants to date the school's cutest girl. But to do that, he's got to fight all these mean-ass delinquents. But thankfully, he got possessed by a big buff genie who gives him superpowers. What era of Shonen Jump was this published in?
Oh, see, I'm not up on my 90s. Is it 90s? 2000s? I don't know.
Perfect. No, Gel, you win. You succeed. Because that is exactly its vibes. But Bucchigiri is a Mappa anime original.
Huh.
Isn't this by the lady?
So it's like they adapted a 90s manga that didn't exist.
Yeah,
how it feels.
Basically.
But yes, this is the director of Free and Skate the Infinity.
Iro and I were watching this episode, and we kept going was this published next to Rave Master or something?
Right.
Or what was the example you used?
Tenjo Tenge.
Right, Tenjo Tenge.
Oh God. Yeah.
And it's no, it's original, fully formed out of the ether, and that's the only reason I really want to talk about it. Is it's just such a weird pick, Like, I mean, we have talked endlessly about like the issues at Mappa and the sacrifices in human capital they have made to create their house style, and it's what makes this such a weird thing to look at in 2024, right? Just if Metallic Rouge was a callback to like 80s anime OVAs, Bucchigiri feels like a callback to like early 2000s shonen anime. And
get all your people who are like nostalgic for history's strongest disciple, Kenichi.
That's
God.
That's another one I put in the opening first look of like, this is just like Tensho Tenge or History's strongest disciple, Kenichi. It's exactly the same vibe.
I like how we all have our one go-to like 6 out of 10 generic like enough like early 2000s shonen jump. Like,
I'm gonna make a well-educated guess and say this has less tits and ass in it than those shows.
There's one girl.
So that is the thing, yes. It being I guess the one thing that differentiates it from those is because it is the Skate the Infinity guy. It's just a lot of really or lady, yes, a lot of hot, strong men.
So that's fascinating. Is it good?
No, I mean it's no.
You know what? It has has an very interesting aesthetic.
Yes,
everything is very like Middle Eastern inspired.
Yeah.
Like this all sounds cool. Like
they don't say where it takes place, but it's very like Middle Eastern coded. Like the architecture,
except it's also Japanese high school delinquent.
But it's also a Japanese high school, but it's a Japanese high school with like arches and domes. It's and I think it's because of the genie theming, right? Because like he gets his powers from a genie. But it's they don't really explicitly say where it's from, so or where it takes place. So it's a little. But in some ways, that's kind of what makes it feel like an early 2000s shonen anime.
It's supposed to be like a take on Aladdin or something. Like
yes, because his name is Arajin, which Aladdin, get it?
Aladdin by way of Japanese delinquent high school.
Which again, like as you say, not a
that sounds cool.
Yeah,
I mean, and there are some okay bits in that first episode, like. Well, I mean, they're okay. They're good bits in the way that I feel like Skate had some good bits in its early episodes. Like it's charming. There's some fun character dynamics. Like there's a lot of good incidental visual gags. Like there's a character who like his role just seems to be to like look goofy in the background. Like he'll be like walking around naked or like eating like a comically large loaf of bread.
Free run.
But. I don't know. Like, there's, like it's fine.
Just gotta wait for the show to introduce its equivalent of all caps Adam and drive itself off of a cliff or skateboard itself.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like the OP shows a lot of this, because our hero gets possessed by a very like Bara coded genie.
Hell yeah!
And then there's a very Ikemen coded genie in the OP, and the two seem to share a hot history. And
of course.
Wait, so does he get possessed by like different genies that give him different powers?
No,
I think another character will get another of their own genie, right?
Yes. The genie is your stand.
It's your Shaman King spirit.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, it sounds
Someone
alright.
watch JoJo and be like, you know what this needs more of? Homoeroticism.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not like bad. It's not offensive or anything like that. It's just I don't know. Like
Is that something we want to watch in 2024?
Right. Yeah, I was not particularly compelled by it. But
I applaud their effort.
It's a lot of hot guys taking their shirts off and fighting. So I mean, that's
Yakuza.
I said that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like my favorite video game, Yakuza."
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Am I a hypocrite here? Maybe.
Maybe.
No, you just prefer your shirtless fighting men a little bit older.
Yeah, that's all.
Tatted up.
A little bit more broken on the inside.
Yeah. All right. It's that's just a fascinating concept, but
yes.
I guess, maybe worth checking out and judging for yourself.
Exact fucking tenor of a 2004 manga.
The protagonist's mom is pretty hot, though.
Oh, okay.
True, yeah.
So you just
like 2004 Shonen Jump manga, gotcha.
you just keep selling us on selling me on this, Gene. But
hot milfs in my area.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on and talk about The Witch and the Beast. I put this on here as a warning because did you watch this, Aqua? Or am I the only one that watched it?
Yes.
Okay.
I watched it. It's not good.
No, it's not. I put this on as a warning because I thought, I was like, oh, this might be cool. There's like a dude. So it's like, so just premise wise, it's like an urban fantasy thing, modern day urban fantasy thing. There's this creepy goth dude smoking cigarettes and dressed like a priest, carrying a coffin on his back, and his partner is this like feral little blonde anime girl that wants to rip everyone's throat out, and they're like
Nicholas D. Wolfwood,
and they're hunting witches. I'm like, all right, I'll check this out, right? And yeah, it just kind of sucks. Like, it's like
this is a show for idiots.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aqua.
Everyone has one character trait. Like, everyone has one character trait. Everything you think will happen happens. So, like, they arrive in this town and they're like, "Oh, we were hunting for witches." And like, they go to like the nearest dude, and it's like, "Hey, have you seen a witch?" And then the dude is like, "No, you should ask this girl. She's the apprentice of a witch." "Oh, thanks, coincidence." And then then like it turns out that in the city, like, "Oh, the witch is nice and everyone loves the witch." And the main characters are like, "But how is that possible? Witches are evil." And then guess what? It turns out that the witch who is nice and everyone likes is actually evil. And she's crazy because she wants to kill everyone because of her grandmother who was burned at the stake 400 years ago because she was blamed for an inferno that she sealed away with magic, and now she wants to undo the seal and set the entire town back on fire.
And I should point out,
actually, she's like,
we learn all of this exactly the way Aqua is telling it. Like, the characters just tell us all this, right? So the experience of Aqua telling you this is the experience of watching the episode.
She is her, like, the witch actually, like, says this, explains this to her, like, student girl who is, like, hopelessly naive, and, like, she wakes up and is like, "Oh, what is this? Why is it dark? Why am I naked and covered in weird, like, ritual signs? Oh no, where are my legs?" And then the witch is like, "Yeah, I'm going to use you as a sacrifice." And then it turns out, what?
Oh, go ahead. Finish. You can finish.
Yeah, later it turns out that the witch, like, doesn't even want revenge. She's just, like, generically evil. It's like, I like to watch people burn. Revenge is so great when you don't even, like, because they point out, like, none of these people were the people who burned your grandmother. Like, that was 400 years ago. And then she says, like, "Oh, but killing people who are innocent is an even better revenge." Haha, I am evil.
What?
Like,
so what in the post for this I wrote this ends up feeling middle school edgelord cool instead of actually cool. like this feels like something somebody wrote in their notebook when they were 14.
And then they have, like, the action is awful. Like,
yes.
Like, the main dude has, like, magic where he summons birds, and it looks like he summons ravens, and it looks like something from fucking Birdemic. Like, they just, like, based CGI birds onto the screen.
Part of me did like the concept of how the girl fights, though, where she So the guy's carrying around a coffin, and when it's time to really get serious, they open up the coffin, and this like some kind of like golem homunculus thing comes out, and the girl possesses it and takes control of it and starts like murdering everybody.
Because like the idea is that the girl has been cursed by a witch, and in this universe there are only 3 things that can lift the curse of a witch. Number 1 is a kiss from your true love. Number 2 is you can convince the witch to reverse the curse. And number 3 is
kill the witch.
Kiss a witch.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Kiss a witch. Yeah.
But then it turns out that kissing the witch only temporarily lifts like your curse. So the implication is that this golem is like the girl's real body, and she like has to kiss the witch, and then she temporarily lifts the curse that put her in this frail female body, and she gets her real body back, and she can like kick ass in her golem body.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a blatant excuse to have girls kissing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
it's just
anyway,
Jesus Christ.
we don't need to spend much more time on this. I was just like, I thought there was some potential for something cool here that did not pan out, and I want to warn everyone.
Also, we haven't pointed out the worst thing yet, namely that they've solved the quote-unquote mystery by the dude reading it in a book.
Oh yeah, I think I did mention that.
The Lord El Meloy II approach to mystery solving.
I did mention that in the post as well. Like it was like talk about bad writing. The like he's like. They're like asking around town. He's like, I need to go back to the hotel to research something. And then we hard cut over to him reading the answer that they were looking for while they're sitting in the hotel. And it's like, oh, well, I guess the witch is this and this and that. And we don't know where that information came from or whatever. He's just like reading it.
Like there's a way to do that where you like present it as like he has the witch guidebook or something, right?
Yeah.
Like the institutional knowledge of
scientific
really,
forum, like
yeah, it's like, or I mean, at least if you're gonna hard cut to him being surrounded by like 100 books or some shit, right? Be like, he spent all day reading or something.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, this sucks. So I'm just warning everybody because it looked like it might be fun, but it's not.
Yeah.
Take our word for it. All right, let's wrap things up by. I guess this is our dessert here. Let's talk about.
Speaking of shows made for idiots, complimentary.
I've never thought about actually saying these words out loud, but the title is Bang Brave Bang Bravern.
Hell yeah.
This is the most mecha show I have seen, most mecha show I have watched in 20-something years, probably. But
I'm joking. Yeah.
Why don't one of you guys give me the premise on this one?
Right. With robots.
So we've had, there's a season of gay robots. Well, what if we just took that to its logical extreme? In all seriousness, so Bang Bravern is the mecha show that was advertised as being directed by the eminent individual himself, Masami Obari, the legendary mecha animator. And this show was initially advertised as a gritty, real robot anime.
Being directed by Obari and having the word "brave" in the title.
Yes. So
that's the joke.
In many ways, this show may have been like hamstrung by Japan's own copyright laws, which I don't think lets you just make up a fake name for a thing you're advertising. Because that probably would have been the real like Galaxy Brain thing, is to call this show like Gun Iron Bolt or something, like
full metal barrels.
But yeah, so it was like Obari's back to directing, and he's directing a real robot anime. Look at these grounded like Votoms inspired real robots, and everybody's like looking at the logo of this show, which is look, man, you don't need to watch a lot of mecha anime to pick up on some context clues here. But we were all like, That's a little odd.
Yeah,
strange. Yeah.
Well, whatever. And then the first episode aired, but not in the West because Crunchyroll completely dropped the ball on licensing this.
Until after it got big on social media.
Yes.
They did get it up eventually, yeah.
Yes.
I guess
they explicitly decided to license this after it went like viral.
Right.
Oh no, that had to be something got hung up.
I don't know. I don't know. Wasn't Bullbuster like the lowest rated show of the season?
Yeah, but you don't license a show in like 3 days. Like they had to have that in the works somewhere. But yeah.
But so yeah, the long story short, I mean, it sucks to kind of have to quote unquote spoil the twist, but like it's been a couple weeks now. I think if you've been paying attention to Bang Bravern, you know what's going on here. But
this show is also all over social media. So
yes, it is consistently like the number one trending thing on JP Twitter at the moment.
I had it spoiled the first day, and I don't feel like it ruined the twist. But I will say before we actually reveal the twist, I find it interesting. When I said this is the most mecha anime I've seen in years, like I feel like anime in the 21st century, or mecha anime in the 21st century, has to have some kind of twist to it or something in addition to it being a mecha anime. Like we just had Bullbuster, which was like, it's actually an office comedy, but it's a mecha anime or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that the twist in this show is like, it is a mecha anime that is also more mecha anime.
Right.
I mean, the thing is, like, for a very long time we have had mecha anime that were like, it's an anime, but there is also a mech. Think of shows like Gargantia or like Comet Lucifer, which were like sci-fi adventure shows, and like there is one mech that like is used occasionally. Right. So
right.
Like, I think it's either that or most mech anime these days are legacy franchises, right?
Yeah,
like Gundam soldiers on, will soldier on until the heat death of the universe, right?
Jokai Senki.
I guess I'm talking outside. I'm talking outside of Gundam because Gundam continues. But yes.
But yeah, so we're ripping the Band-Aid off. If you somehow haven't been spoiled on Bang Bravern yet, go watch the first episode. But I'm pretty sure you already know. So Bang Bravern is a Yusha-inspired super robot anime hiding inside of a gritty real robot anime. Bang Bravern's premise is that in this setting, the U.S. military and the JSDF are doing training exercises with their Titano-Striders, which are these kind of very, real robot, grounded-inspired designs, wheels, on the legs, skating around, very cool designs. I actually like them a lot.
Which they keep calling DS, which is funny because DS usually stands for something else.
Wait, what else?
That's usually the abbreviation they use in Japanese for like gender bender stories.
Okay, my bad. I was not familiar there. Okay, but yeah, so we're kind of introduced to these robots for like the first 2/3 of this episode. We're introduced to our two protagonists, Isami and Lewis Smith, who is just a really good anime American.
Yeah. Whose name might as well be John Hamburger.
Drinking beer and bro-fisting and...
Yeah. I mean, the best detail of the first episode before...
the screen.
Is the fist bump through the monitor, which is such a good little way to be like, this is how Americans pilot robots. But yeah, and then unknown aliens from space attack, and the Titano-Striders are useless. Their weapons are completely ineffective against these aliens. Yep. And it seems like that's going to be it for the human race. Until...
Ultraman shows up.
Bang Bravern arrives on the scene and demands that Isami get inside him.
Immediately.
He needs to come inside him.
Yes! Come inside me, Isami! And that's when Bang Bravern transforms like a brave into a new form. Uh-huh. That being... I don't want to quite call it... I mean, it is satire, but at the end of the day, what Bang Bravern is the intentional juxtaposition of a super robot in a real robot universe, right? So you have this robot who, again, I don't think I need to give the lecture on it every time, but broadly, Real Robot is more grounded mecha anime where the mech is treated as a war machine, like a Gundam, and Super is a genre that maybe most of you don't know exists anymore because there hasn't been one in like 15 years. But
the closest to what an equivalent to Super Robot would be like something like Tokusatsu, except with a giant robot.
Yes.
Or like I feel like Gridman and Dynazenon were in that neighborhood, right?
Yes. Where the robot is closer to superhero than machine, and what Bang Bravern is doing is just smashing the two together, and not necessarily having one overwrite the other, but the sheer like comedy potential of like having your very grim, grizzled military dudes, and then just this 20-foot tall, red, white, and blue talking robot talking about bravery and justice in his heart.
Right. I think it's not necessarily that it's a crossover, because lots of shows have like been a crossover of sorts, like Gunbuster. But it's more like we take the like most po-faced, cliched possible real robot, military, gritty thing, and then like the most over-the-top super robot who yells his special attacks and like believes in the power of justice, and we like slam them into each other, right?
And so far, I'm pretty into it.
It's all really funny.
Yeah,
the show is literally catnip for you guys.
The show just like it's leaning into it just the right amount for me, right? Like, I think there's some talk about like, is it satire or not, right? Is it making fun of mecha anime or not? And then it's like, to that I have to be like, well, is Gurren Lagann a satire?
It's a homage.
Right, exactly. And I think that's kind of where this is going, right? Obari is... There are few people in the anime industry who love mecha as much as Obari, and I think that shows in this anime in the ways in which it cheekily, like, tugs at the strings of these two respective genres, right? Because, like, the main driving joke or character dynamic is between Isami, the taciturn, no-nonsense, real robot ace pilot, and Bravern, the fucking metallic superhero. And they even play at the aspect of like Isami is the reluctant mecha protagonist. He doesn't want to get in the robot, but it's not because of like any perceived sense of like insecurity. It's because
it was just
the robot is coming on to him very hard, man.
His very concept of reality has unraveled in the span of 15 minutes. Also being waterboarded by the CIA.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but I thought it was so funny.
The second episode opens with the grizzled military dudes in a board meeting talking about the arrival of this mysterious new robot. Like, what do we do?
Face is staring directly into the boardroom right
the
outside.
Camera pulls back, right, and the fourth wall of the boardroom has been demolished, and Bravern is just standing there. They're like, Mr. Bravern! Yes, Mr. Bravern, could you repeat that one more time? It's just like...
Cut to Isami being tortured for information.
Tortured by the CIA, by a dude in a fucking Hawaiian shirt and a cigar.
What, Far Cry? Like, if this is satire, it is at least like satire that goes both ways, right? They're dunking on Super Robot and like gruff military, real robot stuff.
And, it's just so good. Like just Sami's just completely just helpless. Like, why are you doing this to me?
Why me, please? I don't wanna.
No fun allowed.
Bravern is like, you have to shout the attack name. And he's like, what are you talking about?
No, not that attack name. It's episode 2, so we have a new attack name.
Bravern's transformation sequence, the logo appears behind him, and then it cuts to a scene where it shows that the logo is diegetic. He actually projects the logo behind him when he transforms.
I mean, in the first episode, the music is also diegetic, which is very good.
It's so funny. Yeah.
Like, Asami's like, what is that music?
What is the song that's playing?
Someone on Twitter described this as like the first 8 episodes of Samurai Flamenco in a single episode.
Yeah, okay, that tracks.
Yeah.
But
yes,
I mean,
yeah.
You can hear it in our voices. This is a really, it's a very entertaining piece of media. Mm-hmm. It hits just all the right like points for what it's trying to be.
It is a niche thing, I think. Like you have to like understand these two movements within the mecha genre and like appreciate them and their tropes somewhat. To like, I think.
It's like
I could see someone watching this and being like, what's happening?
Right. And
like
I've watched a Brave show in my time, and like specific things about this are like extremely funny to me, right? As somebody who is like a little more familiar with that stuff, that I don't know, maybe your average anime watcher now just is only vaguely aware of the super robot, but is not as familiar with these specific jokes, right?
But also we say that, but like Gurren Lagann is pretty close to that like over the top style of super robot. Like
it is, but it's like you're right. There are certain like specific things, right?
I guess
that I'm finding particularly funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, obviously Gurren Lagann is hugely appealing unto itself, but I also think much of its appeal is further enhanced, like, the more mecha anime you become familiar with. And so you understand what it is homaging. And in some regards, I think Bang Bravern is probably in a somewhat similar place, right? That, like, Bravern isn't as funny if you don't, like, know what he is specifically evoking, right?
Right.
Because like the comedy of Bravern is like people will be trying to have like a normal conversation with him, and he is speaking in all caps all the time, right? Yeah. Like people are asking basic questions like, "How do you know my name?" And Bravern will just like talk right past it, right? He won't even like respond to the question, and.
It's destiny. Why are you asking such pointless questions? Yeah, you are my fated pilot.
Exactly. And then I think it's being played mostly for laughs, but I think also a great deal of the humor is also like Obari, correctly recognizing that there has always been a sort of homoerotic subtext in a lot of mecha anime, and kind of just making the subtext text, right? Like Bravern has his whole spiel about like. How hot and Isami grabbing his joystick, and the perfect screen cap that's just he came inside me, and it's just like those two military guys with like their head in their hands,
just completely dissociated.
And it's the thing of like, is this enough to sustain a whole show? I mean, we'll see how long they keep playing the same joke, but for now, I am definitely, I'm definitely into what they're playing with here. I will say just for posterity, I have a theory about Bang Bravern.
Yes,
because in the second episode, like all mecha anime, we must eventually ask the question, if the protagonist doesn't want to pilot the robot, why not just get somebody else, right? And Lewis, the American, is like portrayed in the show as a big, boisterous, like friendly guy with, he's hot-blooded, he gets along with everybody, and you think, oh, he's a perfect fit to pilot the super robot. And so
he always wanted to be a hero when he grew up.
Right, and so Lewis is like, if Asami won't do it, like, Bravern, let me do it. And Bravern's like, I can't. It's physically impossible. Like, it can't be, like, it has to be Asami. And...
Japanese only.
Oh no, that's the real reason. Bravern, in 2 episodes, Bravern has been milkshake ducked.
Oh no,
he's a racist.
Bravern,
no, but Bravern keeps like saying things in this last episode that like hint that he like knows more than he's letting on. Like he knows the rival mech that they fight in the second episode. You know, like he knows it by name. He talks to it as if he's familiar with it.
He knew Inami's name as well. So
right, that as well. And I'm like, is Bravern from the bad future?
Time loop.
And is Bravern was Bravern's AI built from like Lewis's DNA or something? Like, did they put Lewis's brain inside Bravern?
Entirely possible.
After wife arm, we now get husband robot.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, man. I mean, I'm just willing to throw it out there.
Mm-hmm. It's not out of the question. That's what I'll say. Yeah. Right.
If Lewis pilots Bravern, it would create a time paradox.
It's the only explanation.
Can't go changing the future like that. I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
It's a fun show, like you guys said. If you get what they're doing, I would not recommend everybody watch this show, but if you have any frame of reference for mecha anime and how they operate, then you'll at least get a laugh out of this. I think
opportunity fan service and opening has all the hot ladies posing, their boobs bouncing, and then the ED is two buff, naked, like shirtless men, you know, holding hands in the rain and singing to each other.
Duet in the rain.
So, you know,
something for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Look how far we've come.
I know.
Robots can kiss. Witches can kiss.
What if two Gundams kiss?
Yeah. Everybody can kiss whoever they want. That's progress. Well, on that note, I did not get to watch the second episode of that, but I'll probably stick with that for a little longer myself. I'm not as big of a mecha anime fan as you guys are, but I have enough frame of reference to get it, and it's fun. So
yeah.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode. We made it. So we'll see what shows we're still watching for next time. We'll work that all out. Mm-hmm. I think a couple of these we're definitely sticking with, but a lot of them we're not. So we'll have that conversation next time. In the meantime, to do our housekeeping, you can check us out at theglorioblog.com. Go take a look at, we've got all of our year-end coverage stuff still up there. I mean, that wasn't that long ago. that's what we did. We wrote a lot of stuff in the past
2023
month.
Isn't that long ago, right?
Yeah, the past month we've written a lot of stuff. So check out our 2023 year-end coverage, including our top 10 anime of the year, all of our first looks for this season, which is a lot more shows that we did not talk about on this podcast that you can go check out there, and you can get some perspective from some of the other GLORIO crew, and then you can follow us on Twitter at the GLORIO blog, on co-host at GLORIO. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch you up next time.